again. A protester was brutally executed today in Minneapolis. Tyrone Bowman, live, global news. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the commentary. Welcome to the analysis. As always, my preliminary remarks are going to be brief, and then I'm going to get right into the different stories that I'm going to be talking about today. I'll be bringing news from around the world from various sources, news agencies, outlets, and etc. And one of the main things that I'm striving to do with this channel is to keep men and women well informed as to what's going on in our nation and around the world as a whole. I want to get into this story about a protester who was armed, by the way. I'll get into that later. And he was videotaping the ICE agents. Something went wrong somewhere. Even after they killed him, they emptied out every bullet in their guns. And I've seen the video, the shocking video, and then you could see them running off, trying to hide their faces because they did not want to be identified. You know what's ironic about this as I get ready to get into this story as reported by the Associated Press News.com? I don't see anyone being shot, murdered, or killed in any of the so-called red states or Republican states. The Proud Boys aren't killed. The Nazis aren't being killed. The KK members aren't being killed. No one is bringing the National Guard and ICE down into Republican territory. And let me tell you the reason why all this is happening. Because men and women had an opportunity during the presidential election to elect a president who would rule with civility. They chose not to. They believed the lies, they believed the propaganda, and they said they did it because it was going to be good for the economy. Well, from what I've been viewing and what I've been hearing from the people down in the Midlands part of the nation, they're asking the government to give them a welfare check. That's all a bailout is. It's a welfare check. They're complaining about their crops being rotted. They're complaining that their businesses are being destroyed. They're complaining about how they can't keep people to work for them. But you all voted for this carnage. You voted for this massacre. You voted for this chaos and confusion because you thought that it wasn't going to affect any of you. You thought that all would be well with y'all and you would get a ton of money and you would get all the tax breaks and tax incentives and none of this would come your way. Well, now you are living a nightmare, one that you are trapped in because you created the nightmare. And when people create their own misery, who can you blame? I want to talk about the Associated Press News.com article. It was written by Jack Brook, Steve Karonowski, and Rebecca Santana. The headline reads, "Man is shot and killed during Minneapolis immigration crackdown. The National Guard has been activated." Federal immigration officers shot and killed a man Saturday in Minneapolis, drawing hundreds of protesters onto the frigidly cold streets in a city already shaken by another fatal shooting weeks earlier. No, it was a murder. It wasn't just a shooting. A shooting is when somebody gets shot, they get maimed, but they're still alive. Renee Nicole Good was murdered. And I don't care what the other networks say or how they try to phrase it, how they justify it. You can't justify murdering American citizens in the streets. You can't justify under the guise of the mantra of law and order. These people don't know what they're doing. These can't be highly skilled, trained ICE agents. These are the same people who were the rioters during the January 6th insurrection. That's why they're wearing masks. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara said a 37-year-old man was killed but declined to identify him. I'll find out his identity. He added that information about what led up to the shooting was limited. The man was identified by his parents as Alex Preeti, an intensive care unit nurse. Really? He was an intensive care unit nurse, and even after they killed him, they still pumped bullets into him and stood over top of him like that was a prize. Midterm elections are coming up. The question is, what are you all going to do, America? What are you going to do about this Congress and this Senate that is sitting idly by, justifying everything that's going on in this nation? Are you going to let them remain in power? Are you going to allow them to have the deciding voice? They don't care about the economy. They don't care about Medicare and Medicaid. They don't care about seniors not having enough food to eat. They don't care about the jobs index factor. They only care about leverage, power and more money. Hell, half of the senators and people, they have invested in private prisons and things of this nature. They want to protect their investments. They don't care about the populace of this nation. It is indicative that they just don't care. The Minnesota National Guard, which had been activated earlier by Governor Tim Walz, was assisting local police in growing protests. Let me say something to you, Governor. You need to get your behind out front before the camera and speak with some authority. Stop trying to be all nice and proper and articulate. Your state needs a leader, a fierce leader. Governor Gavin Newsom in California stood up for his state and the constituency that put him in power. Tim Walz, you don't need to be reading from a newspaper or from a notes. Open your mouth and speak from your heart and speak with some authority. People are grieving. People are hurting. People are losing their lives. They're being shot down. They don't even kill animals in this way. Animals get better protection in America than the people do in Minneapolis. Peter would be all over them if they executed an animal the way they executed this man today. What type of threat was he? And he's an intensive care unit nurse. Department of Homeland Security spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin said in a statement that federal officers, listen to this, were conducting an operation as part of the Trump administration's immigration crackdown and fired, quote, defensive shots, quote, after a man with a handgun approached them and violently resisted. I don't believe that one bit, because I saw the video and he did not violently approach them. She's outright lying. And she's reading from a scripted script. She's going to say exactly what she's told to say to justify it. Since when is it illegal to be legally armed in America? When? Oh, excuse me, it's okay for the Republicans and the Nazis and the Proud Boys and all these white racist bigoted hate groups. They can carry all the firearms and guns that they want in broad daylight and threaten and intimidate everybody. That's okay. But an average citizen cannot be legally armed with a concealed weapon. You can clearly see in the video that a mob attacked him. They were beating the hell out of this man unmercifully. And you can hear all the shots that they pumped into his body, and then they left him there and they were looking at him. Oh yeah, this is our victory. We murdered another one and we get total immunity. There'll be no impunity coming for us. We're justified in whatever we do. We can break the law. We can violate people. We can murder people. We can do whatever we want. Get off your behinds in the midterm elections. Put an end to this foolishness in America. Let me say it again. Get off your behinds in the midterm elections and put an end to this foolishness in America. Because if you don't, it's going to get worse. Next thing you know, they're going to be killing children in the same way, and then they're going to try to justify it. What about the arrest of the 5-year-old that was used as bait to get to his parents? These things are really happening before our eyes. During the civil rights movement, America wasn't really concerned until they saw with their own eyes coming into their living rooms about the horrible things that was happening to black people down in Birmingham, Alabama, Arkansas, and all these other places. Women had dogs sicked on them, water hoses. Children were beaten unmercifully. When they saw it come into their living room and their dining rooms around their dinner table, yes, because as long as it did not bother them, they did not care. They would say, well, the niggers should have stayed in their place. Yeah, I said it, because that's what they called us. And they're still calling us that. It's not the N word. It is what it is. They're still calling black people niggers in America. But I tell you one group they won't offend. They won't offend the Jewish people. They won't call them out of their name, no matter what they do, no matter what they say, no matter how they act. They're persona non grata. They're off limits. They won't say anything against the Jewish community at all, lest they were considered to be anti-Semitic. And if you think that this can happen in your city, in your town, in your neighborhood, you are living in a deluded state of mind. These people are following their orders. One of their leaders walked around in a full Nazi regalia with a high Hitler salute, with all his bodyguards surrounding him. The article goes on to say, when officers tried to disarm him, O'Hara said police believe the man was a lawful gun owner with a permit to carry. The officer who shot the man is an 8-year Border Patrol veteran, federal officials say. It wasn't an officer, it was all of them that shot him. This is not one lone Border Patrol veteran. They all unloaded on this man. Go look at the video. Videos don't lie. President Donald Trump weighed in on social media by lashing out at Minnesota's governor and the Minneapolis mayor. Trump shared images of the gun that immigration officials said was recovered and said, quote, "What is that all about? Where are the local police? Why aren't they allowed to protect ICE officers?" End quote. In a bystander video obtained by the Associated Press, protesters can be heard blowing whistles and shouting profanities at agents on Nicollet Avenue. The video shows an officer shoving a person who was wearing a brown jacket, skirt, tight, and black tights, and carrying a water bottle. That person reaches out for a man, and the two link up, embracing. The man wearing a brown jacket and a black hat seems to be holding his phone up toward the officer. The same officer shows the man in his chest, and the two still embrace and fall back. The video then shifts to a different part of the street, then comes back to the two individuals unlinking from each other. The video shows focus again and then shows 3 officers surrounding the man. It wasn't 3. You're going to tell us what we saw was a lie, and we saw it with our own eyes? Listen, y'all, listen to me. You don't even have to protest anymore. Just go to the ballot box. Go to the ballot box in November. You can take all the authority away from these ICE agents. Don't even show up. Let them just come to the town, and they'll just be looking like fools, standing up in there with all their guns drawn. You don't have to protest. You don't have to come out. You don't have to shout things at them. Go to the ballot box in November. Go to the polls. You got to hit them where it hurts. Stop patronizing their businesses. Stop rewarding them with your money. Soon, at least 7 officers surround the man. One is on the man's back, and another, who appears to have a canister in his hand, strikes a blow in the man's chest. No, he hit him in the head. He didn't strike him in the chest. Several officers tried to bring the man's arms behind his back as he appears to resist. As they pull his arms, his face is briefly visible on camera. The officer with the canister strikes the man near his head several times. When someone's having the hell beat out of them and you're talking about don't resist, what do you think they're going to do? They're in pain. It hurts. A shot rings out. But with officers surrounding the man, it's not clear from where the shot came. Multiple officers back off the man after the shot. More shots are heard, officers backing away, and the man lies motionless on the street because they emptied their bullets into his body. That's why. The police chief appealed for calm, both from the public and from federal law enforcement. Quote, our demand today is for those federal agencies that are operating in our city to do so with the same discipline, humanity, and integrity that effective law enforcement in the country demands, the chief said. We urge everyone to remain peaceful. Customs and Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino said the officer who shot the man had extensive training, blah, blah, yada, yada, yada. This is only the latest attack on law enforcement across the country. The men and women of DHS have been attacked, shot at, he said. So they're talking about Democrat Governor Tim Walz said he had no confidence in federal officials and that the state would lead the investigation into the latest fatal shooting. No, they're going to take it away from you, Governor, because they want to bury stuff and hide it. Protesters continued to converge at the scene of the shooting despite dangerously cold weather. At Saturday midday, the worst of an extreme cold weather was over, but the temperature was still 6 degrees or minus 21 Celsius. The Arctic blast hadn't deterred thousands of protesters from marching downtown in Minneapolis on Friday afternoon to call for ICE to leave Minnesota. The shooting happened amid widespread daily protests in the Twin Cities since the January 7th shooting of 37-year-old Renee Good, who was killed when an immigration and customs officer fired into her vehicle Saturday. Shooting unfolded just over a mile from where Good was shot. You know, down in Minneapolis, many young black youth were killed by the police down there. And there wasn't this kind of outrage over their murders. Does law enforcement have a dangerous job? Yes. Should law enforcement be given all the tools and things that they need? Yes, no doubt about it. Are there decent men and women who put their lives on the line every day, upholding the constitutionality? Yes. Are there individuals who act with integrity and moral principle? The answer is yes, but all of them do not. And the decent good officers will not open their mouths to speak for fear of being retaliated against. So they keep their mouths shut because they don't want to get fired. They want the pension, they want the benefits, and blah, blah, blah. But if it happens to somebody you know, then what? And then when they did talk about the late Renee Nicole Good, first thing they said, she was a lesbian. What the hell does that have to do with anything? What is that supposed to mean? That she was supposed to be murdered? Let me just say this. Let me deviate from the script. All the people in the LGBTQ plus community, they pay taxes like everybody else. They work hard just like everybody else. Many of them are corporate CEOs, male and female. Many of them are in politics. And you got a ton of them on the Republican side, but they don't want to acknowledge it. I said they're in the Republican caucuses too. They're Congress people, they're senators, but nobody wants to talk about it. But if you're a Democrat and you're gay, then you need to die and go to hell. That's their consensus. And where's the outcry from the hypocritical preachers who took the money and now they keep their mouths shut? Come on, preachers, you're supposed to be out there speaking for justice, for mercy, for grace, for humanity's sake, for compassion. No, you all just want people to come to your churches, support your ministries, buy your books, your tapes, your DVDs, and give their tithes and their offerings and do whatever you say, but you don't want to fight for them. Some of them do, but the vast majority of them do not. The shooting happened amid widespread daily protest, as I already said. After the shooting, an angry crowd gathered and screaming profanities at federal officers, calling them cowards and telling them to go home. One officer responded mockingly as he walked away, telling them, boo hoo. Agents elsewhere shoved a yelling protester into a car. Protesters dragged garbage dumpsters from alleyways to block the streets, and people who gathered chanted, ICE out now, referring to immigration and customs enforcement. They're killing my neighbor, said Minneapolis resident Josh Koski. Federal officials wielded batons and deployed flashbangs on the crowd. If you don't think this is reminiscent of the 60s, go back and pull up on YouTube or wherever you get your videos from. Tell them to pull up the protesting and the violent clashes with police during the civil rights movement, and you will see it's the same thing happening today. The only difference is it's white people that are being murdered and being slaughtered and being killed. That's the only difference. So I'm going to find out who the individual was, and I'm going to get back to it. Okay, according to The Guardian from the U.S. News section, who was this article written by? This article was written by Melody Shebra. Here's a photo of Alex Pretty. This is the individual who was brutally executed today. This is him. I'm deliberately leaving this photo up here for a few minutes before I get into this article. All right, let's talk about this gentleman. According to, clean my glasses here, they're kind of foggy. You know, I wear reading glasses because I do a lot of reading and studying as a law student, and I have to. You all be surprised how much reading and writing I have to do in order to get this law degree, but it'll be well worth it when I walk across that stage and pass the bar when the time comes. All right. The Minnesota man who was killed by federal agents on Saturday has been identified as Alex Pretty, who is 37, a registered nurse working in the intensive care unit at the Minneapolis VA healthcare system, which serves veterans. It's the second fatal shooting this month in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in addition to another non-fatal shooting amid a major crackdown in Minnesota by federal agents. Pretty attended nursing school at the University of Minnesota, where he was also a junior scientist, beginning in 2012, according to his LinkedIn profile. All right, I got to give me a minute here. Really clean these up so I can see the words. They look foggy to me. So I want to do justice to my viewers who come on this channel. I owe it to you all to be as professional as I possibly can. Okay, so he attended the University of Minnesota, where he was also a junior scientist, beginning in 2012, according to the profile. He wanted to help people, said Dmitry Drakanja, chief of infectious disease at the VA hospital and professor of medicine at the University of Minnesota, who worked with Pretty at the hospital and on a research project. He was a super nice, super helpful guy looking after his parents. I'm just stunned. To his parents tonight, my heart breaks for you all. It really does. And I hope and pray that through the divine grace of God, as you go through this mourning period and you prepare to put your son away in a wonderful way, that grace and mercy and comfort will be given to you all and to his friends as well. So he described Priti as an outstanding nurse and a hard worker, quick with a joke and an infectious spirit. He was such a good dude. Drakonja told The Guardian, I just loved working with him. Michael Priti, Alex's father, echoed Drakonja's assessment, describing his son to the Associated Press as someone who cared about people deeply. And he was very upset with what was happening in Minneapolis and throughout the United States with ICE, as millions of other people are upset. He felt that doing the protesting was a way to express that, his care for others, the elder Priti said. Priti's father confirmed to the AP that his son had participated in protests following the killing of Renee Good by a U.S. immigrant by ICE. Video circulating online on Saturday showed Priti directing traffic and filming federal agents, his right hand holding up his phone and his left hand empty. Another video shows him being wrestled to the ground by several law enforcement officers before appearing to be shot several times. At least 2 officers can be seen with their weapons drawn. Other videos show Priti seemingly coming to the defense of a legal observer who was shoved to the ground by a federal officer. That officer then sprays Priti with a chemical agent repeatedly before tackling him to the street along with other agents. So you're trying to make us believe that this didn't really happen? You think we're going to believe your version? No, we're not. Because we know you're going to spin it and you're going to lie and you're going to say and do whatever you have so that you all don't look bad. And this is the disgusting part about it. There's no empathy. There's no saying, well, you know what? I really didn't mean to kill him. I really feel bad about it. No, we're glad he's dead. If he only had just obeyed the law and wasn't out there protesting, then he might be alive. He deserved to die. That's the consensus. When you stand up for freedom, justice, and equality. While other people can come from other countries to America and build empires and get billions and billions and billions of dollars tax-free with government incentives and become a billionaire many times over. That's okay. But people who live right here in America are treated like trash and dirt and garbage every single day. From all races, all creeds, all colors, all faiths, all religions, all nationalities. We all catch hell. His friend Drakonja goes on to say, from what I can see, he was trying to help pull someone away, which is just totally in character for him. Police Chief Brian O'Hara later said during a press conference on Saturday that Priti's only known previous interaction with law enforcement was for traffic tickets. Oh, so that warrants him being shot down and murdered because he had traffic tickets. And that's what you're trying to allude to, Chief of Police? I've been to prison for 10 long years. And then people ask me, well, why did you go to prison? I said, why don't you go ask the lying, racist prosecutors why they locked me up? Why don't you go ask the lying people who framed me and sent me to prison and said to hell with me and wanted me to die there? But thank God I got all the proof to prove my innocence. See, what they didn't know is that while I was compiling my portfolio the entire time while I was preparing for trial, because I knew they would be lying. I knew they would fabricate evidence. I knew they would try to make it seem like they were justified in what they were doing. Well, this black man will not go quietly into that long good night. I'm going to sue the hell out of them once I become a lawyer. Oh, yeah, I am. And I don't care who gets upset, whose lives are destroyed. Let the chips fall where they may. They didn't care about me and they didn't care about my children at the time all this happened, so I don't care about them. No, I don't want to hear about turn the other cheek and all that stuff. Let it happen to you and you rot in the prison for 10 years, eating garbage and filth. Officers looking at up the crack of your behind night and day and night, framing people. Do some people belong in prison? Without a doubt. Some people actually belong there because they've committed some heinous crimes, and justifiably so, They should be locked up. But this business about just framing people, locking people up, throwing away the keys, and then you just go on with your life and your career as if nothing ever happened until you get caught. And then you want to try to justify it. See, I don't want no apologies. I don't give a damn about the apologies. Just pay me. That's it. I care less about a half-hearted, non-sincere apology. So Pretty's parents, who live in Wisconsin, told the AP that during a recent conversation with their son, they warned him about being careful during protests. Oh, I wish he had heeded. We had this discussion with him 2 weeks ago or so, that go ahead and protest, but do not engage, do not do anything stupid, basically, Michael Pretty said. And he said he knows that. He knew that. More is going to be coming out about this young man. I don't think they're going to be able to just push this under the rug. I don't think so. Not this time. All right, let's talk about the Steelers, who are going to hire Mike McCarthy as the new head coach. Mike McCarthy has reached a verbal agreement with the Pittsburgh Steelers to become their next head coach. The move comes less than 2 weeks after Mike Tomlin stepped down after 19 seasons. Kudos to you, Mike Tomlin. I'm quite sure you will go on to do some good and exciting things. McCarthy, who is 62, wow, 62. Why do they always go get these old guys to be the coaches? Aren't there any qualified young coaches out there to lead a team who may have longevity with the team instead of a 62-year-old? Come on, y'all. Seriously. What are y'all thinking about sometimes? So most recently, McCarthy served as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. Well, we know the Steelers aren't going to go anywhere if he is a former head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. Look at the lousy job he did in Dallas when he was the coach. He was pathetic. Dismally pathetic as the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. That's when I got rid of him. And he was even more pathetic when he went to Green Bay. And now the Steelers want this 62-year-old washed-up has-been to lead their team into the future? Are you serious? Are you serious? You tell me you couldn't find a 32-year-old individual to lead the team? It said his crowning achievement came following the 2010 season when he and Aaron Rodgers defeated the Steelers in Super Bowl, 14, 15. A Pittsburgh native who grew up enamored with the Chuck Noll dynasty of the 1970s, McCarthy now has an opportunity to return to his roots, becoming the franchise's fourth head coach since Noll was hired in 1969. His father, Joe McCarthy Jr., was a firefighter who owned a bar in the Greenfield neighborhood. While the Steelers have a long history of employing homegrown football guys, this hire is outside of their normal mold in many ways. Traditionally, the Steelers have favored young, defensive-minding head coaches who have provided stability and continuity for decades. Noll was 37 when he was hired. Bill Cowher was 34 and Tomlin was 34. All three stepped down before their 60th birthday. What does that tell you? I don't need to read no more of this article. I think they made a bad decision. That's just my opinion, but I think they made a bad decision in hiring McCarthy. Whew. They should have picked somebody else to lead their team. All right, what's this one about? Okay, here's one that you all might be interested in from Words of News. In this article written by Jonathan Stimpel. Judges reject DoorDash, Uber, Instacart bids to block New York City tipping laws. So here's a summary. DoorDash, Uber warned of tipping fatigue. Instacart cited interference with state legislature. The New York City Mayor, Mandami, critical of delivery app industry. And DoorDash, Uber, Instacart are planning appeals. Federal judges rejected the DoorDash's Dash .0, Uber Technologies, Uber.N, and Instacart's Cart.O. Bids for injunctions to block a series of New York City laws governing food delivery apps, including a requirement that they give customers an option for tip delivery workers when paying. U.S. District Judge George Daniels in Manhattan said DoorDash and Uber did not show a clear likelihood that a requirement that they suggest a minimum 10% tip before customers place orders would violate their constitutional free speech rights. Daniels said the tipping laws advance the city's goals of enhancing cost transparency at the time of checkout, restoring customer choice, and providing protections to delivery workers. Separately, U.S. District Judge John Coletti in Manhattan rejected Instacart's argument that New York State's legislature forbids the city from mandating the tipping option and from requiring grocery delivery apps such as Instacart to offer delivery workers the same minimum pay available to restaurant delivery workers. The companies, all based in San Francisco, warned that the laws could reduce business. How are the laws going to reduce business? Tell me. Business is booming for all of y'all. Y'all just are greedy billionaires who don't want to pay your workers. You want them to be slaves behind the wheel from sun up to sundown. And then you have a nerve to take a portion of the tips that people give them. And you have so many restrictions applied to Uber, Lyft, Instacart, DoorDash. Y'all are just greedy business merchants. You're greedy. I'll say it again. You are pathetically greedy. Y'all want to keep all the profits and all the money for yourselves, but you want your workers to become nomadic slaves. That's what you want. You don't want them to take bathroom breaks. You don't want them to get fatigued. You don't want them to get tired. You offer them no protection of any kind. And now you're mad because they want a guarantee. What is wrong with that? DoorDash said Uber and the tipping disclosure rule would dissuade customers burdened by rising prices and tipping fatigue from ordering, while Instacart said raising worker pay could lead to higher grocery delivery costs. Raise their pay. Nobody gives a darn about you greedy billionaires. Y'all all one and the same, just greedy. Both decisions are dated January 22nd and were made public on Friday. The law takes effect on January 26th. All three companies said they plan appeals. Well, appeal it then. Doesn't mean you're going to win. How can you expect people to work night and day and night? Well, let's find out what's happening from Al Jazeera News. Let's go over there for a moment. Let's find out what's going on. Matter of fact, I'm going to do Canada first. Canada news. I want it from their perspective, not from the Wall Street Journal's perspective. I want their news agencies. I don't want to talk about Candace Owens, whatever, lady. I really don't care. Okay, Al Jazeera News. All right, from Al Jazeera News, this article was written by Kafik Gathara. The headline reads, electoral violence is on the horizon in Kenya. Conditions in Kenya are ripe for the weaponization of violence in the presidential vote. It is up to Kenyans to stop it. Really? Well, why are riots happening in Kenya concerning the elections? Could it be because they're tired of rigged elections? They're tired of their politicians oppressing them and appeasing the white colonizers who guarantee them protection for their minimal rights and things of that nature, take all kinds of bribes, yet the economy is still dismal. Every time you see pictures coming from Kenya, they always show starving kids, starving mothers, people living in dirt hut tents, when we know that there's much more going on in Africa outside of that type of propaganda. As Kenya prepares its next general election due in less than 20 months' time, 2026 will prove to be a critical year with local and global restraints on political violence being hollowed out at the very time. When trust in the credibility of the election system is at an all-time low, serious trouble beckons unless urgent steps are taken. Violence in Kenyan elections is rarely the product of that perennial boogeyman tribalism. It is almost exclusively a state-generated phenomenon that requires a particular alignment of circumstances. To matter above all else, first, whether the election itself is credible. Second, whether the incumbent is running for re-election. Since the reintroduction of multi-party politics in 1991, Kenya has had 7 competitive presidential elections. It was only in 4 of them that significant violence was witnessed. In all 4, the inevitable, unpopular incumbent was running. In 2002, 2013, and 2022, when no incumbent was on the ballot, violence was comparatively muted, even where the credibility of the election itself was contested. The lesson is clear. It is the efforts to improve the credibility of the election and to enforce institutional restraints on state actors that are best safeguard. Kenya has some way in this regard since the conflagration that followed the disputed 2007 election. The 2010 Constitution introduced checks on the wanton exercise of state power, most importantly, an independent judiciary, which has proven a credible venue for settling election disputes. Reforms in the election system to enhance transparency, most evident in the 2022 elections, have also taken some of the sting out of the polls. Today, however, that progress is at risk, and President William Ruto is running for re-election. Following a long delay, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission was reconstituted in July last year, albeit not without controversy, following the president's initial decision to ignore a court order stopping the appointment of commissioners following a legal challenge to their sustainability. Let's find out what's happening else is happening in Al Jazeera. According to an article by a news agency in Al Jazeera, Trump lashes praise on UK troops amid anger over his Afghanistanian claims. United States President Donald Trump has praised UK soldiers a day after receiving a rare rebuke from United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer over comments he made about European troops staying, quote, a little off the front lines in the war in Afghanistan. Let me tell you something about these leaders. Listen to me. They will disagree, cuss each other out, lay each other out, but at the end of the day, they're all friends. They're all friends at the end of the day. They all get along. They're always laughing and talking and joking. at the expense of people. What they want everyday people always at each other's necks. That way, if they keep people arguing and cussing and fighting, if they keep the writers constantly going against one another, then they have an opportunity through the divisiveness to do what they want to do behind the scenes. It's time to wise up. It's time to wise up and see things for what they really are. Midterm elections, November 2026. What are you going to do? Are you going to sit idly by and complain, or are you going to get off your behinds and get out there to help to take this nation in the right direction? In an apparent bid to ease tensions with Starmer, Trump took to social media on Saturday to acknowledge the 457 UK soldiers had died in Afghanistan, with many others badly wounded, describing them as being among the greatest of all warriors. Okay, let me move right along. That's called being passive. Coming from the Al Jazeera Network, and the Washington Post did a story about Trump threatens 100% tariff on Canada over his deal with China. So credit goes to Julian Kessler D. Amores. United States President Donald Trump has threatened to impose a 100% tariff against Canada if Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney moves ahead with an announcement trade deal with China. In a statement shared on Truth Social, Trump said Carney is sorely mistaken if he thinks Canada can become a drop-off port for China to send goods and products into the United States. If Canada makes a deal with China, it will immediately be hit with a 100% tariff against all Canadian goods. Well, that's already going on. Remember? They're already being taxed out of the wazoo. That's nothing new to the Canadian Prime Minister. As a matter of fact, they welcome that type of rhetoric because they'll tax all American goods as well. So it goes both ways. You tax Canada, Canada will tax y'all. 100% tariff. Tit for tat. And which is the right thing to do. Carney's office did not immediately respond to Al Jazeera's request. The Canadian minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade, Dominique Leblanc, said on X later on Saturday that there is no pursuit of a free trade deal with China. Instead, he described the deal announced last week between Ottawa and Beijing as a resolution on several important tariff issues. Canada's new government is building a stronger Canadian economy with a plan that is building our strength at home and strengthening our trading partnership throughout the world, LeBlanc said. Well, Canada has every right to strengthen their economy, whether people think so or not. You know, the American economy can't be the only economy that is thriving. What's happening with the BBC News? All right, let me see how they covered this. All right, they covered the Minneapolis shooting on BBC News. Olivia Ireland wrote the article. It says what we know about man. Come on, y'all. You're supposed to be some intelligent people. I don't even want to read the headline because it sounds stupid. A U.S. patrol officer has been shot, and a U.S. Border Patrol officer has shot and killed a man in Minneapolis. Alex Pretty, a 37-year-old nurse, is the second person to be shot dead by a federal agent in the city this month. The authorities have used tear gas to disperse protesters who have returned to the streets to protest against the operation by ICE. So how did it all unfold? Tensions in Minneapolis have been high since the Trump administration deployed 2,000 federal agents on the 6th of January to the area after allegations of welfare fraud in the state. So let's get this straight. Right after he was sworn into office 1 year ago, he deployed 2,000 federal agents to Minnesota. It is a response to a campaign launched by ICE late last year to target immigrants in Minneapolis who were issued deportation orders, including members of the city's Somali community. Well, I got news for you, ladies and gentlemen. I saw the person who's behind the biggest welfare scam fraud in the history. She is a white woman who lied, schemed, and plotted to the tune of $250 million. And I'm going to get you her face and show you her. But no one is talking about her. She is the mastermind. She is the one who got all the money. She's the one who defrauded the government. You mean to tell me she wasn't under the radar of the U.S. government defrauding the welfare system? So all the blame goes to the black Somalis, whether they want to call themselves black or not? Do you know, statistically speaking, because I did several videos about it, more white people get welfare than any other people in America. They want you to think that only black people, Hispanic people, and Mexican people are the recipients of welfare. I told you when I started this video almost 51 minutes ago how down to Iowa and all these other southern states right now, they're begging the government for welfare. They're begging the government to step in. They're begging them for Section 8 housing. They're begging them for SNAP benefits. They want help. Yet they're the ones who voted for this misery that's going on in the country. I listened to some of their testimonies. They said, well, we didn't think he was going to do this to us. We wanted him to do it to them, not to us. That's why we voted for him, for a robust economy. We voted for him not to take our field workers, aka slaves. We didn't vote for that. So how do you feel knowing that all your crops are rotting? How do you feel knowing that you can't get anybody to go out into those fields? All those goods just rotting away because of your prejudiced, racist, bigoted, political ideologies. And now you want people to reach out and help. Contact your congressman. Oops, you can't, because they are Republicans. They're not going to help you. Contact your senators. You can't get them either because they're not going to return your telephone calls. So the tensions that have escalated in Minneapolis is in response to blah, blah, blah. Protesters took place since the agents arrived and further escalated after the fatal shooting of Renee Nicole Good on the 8th of January. Coming from BBC News, once again, the article headline reads, Germany arrests suspected Hamas member over alleged attack plot. Now, who was this article written by? I don't see the person's name. Let me go back and see if I can find it. Because I like to give credit to everybody when I'm talking about. Maybe it's at the end of the article. German police have arrested a Lebanese national on suspicions of being a member of Hamas and planning attacks in Europe. The man named as Mohammed S. was stopped at Berlin's Brandenburg airport after arriving from Beirut on Friday evening. You know what? I've got to give it to Germany and the leaders in Germany. They have done everything that they possibly could to shed themselves and eradicate any resemblance of Adolf Hitler. They have tried their best to allow Germany to become a democratic, open nation. You have to give credit to where credit is due. I have friends of mine who have relatives who live in Germany, and they said they're perfectly happy over there. They don't have to put up with the racism and bigotry in Germany the way they have to do here in America. America is an extremely divisive nation. It's polarized. Just because people have hate don't mean you're going to cause me to hate. I will not let hate live in my spirit. I won't let hate live in my soul. When I'm doing these articles, I'm just presenting facts. That's all I'm doing. I won't let this stuff live and fester on the inside of me. Federal prosecutor said that in August 2025, he helped procure 300 rounds of ammunition and was involved in an alleged plot to attack Jewish and Israeli institutions. He is due to be brought before a federal judge who will decide on a pre-trial detention. Hamas, which controlled Gaza but has been severely weakened by Israeli operations in the territory, is considered a terrorist organization by the US, UK, Israel, and many other countries. The militant Palestinian group carried out the attacks on Israel in October 2023, in which about 1,200 people were killed and more than 250 people were taken hostage. Since then, according to Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry, more than 70,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli military action. German authorities say Mohammed S. colluded with Abed al-G, one of 3 alleged Hamas members who was arrested last October over planned attacks on Jewish and Israeli institutions. The 3 were reportedly arrested while meeting for a weapons handover in Berlin. 2 of them are Germany nationals. Another is from Lebanon. Wow, they got him. All right, let's see what else we have here before I get ready to leave for today. Take care of yourselves. If this winter storm is going to be what this is going to be, make sure you all take care of yourselves. Do what you have to do. Stay warm. Stay hydrated. Take care of your family. Make sure you have what you need. This one is from CBS News regarding Don Lemon. This article is written by Sarah Litch. The appeals court declines to order lower court to sign arrest warrants against Don Lemon and others in the church protest. A federal appellate court on Friday declined to order a lower court judge to sign arrest warrants against 5 people, including former CNN anchor Don Lemon, in conjunction with an anti-ICE protest inside a church in St. Paul, Minnesota. One of the 3 judges said he felt there was probable cause to justify the arrest, according to court filings and sources familiar with the matter. The ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit, which was unsealed Saturday, came about after the Justice Department asked the appellate court to compel the U.S. District Court in Minnesota to sign 5 arrest warrants over civil rights charges, alleging the defendants were unlawfully interfering with the churchgoers' constitutionality protected freedom to practice religion. Let me ask the question here. Why is it that the constitutional protections apply to one group of people, but they don't apply to another group? Listen, I'm going to say it. How come protections are given to one group of people, but marginalized groups, they can't say that their civil rights were in violation? And this whole hypothesis about white people being discriminated against in America is absurd. White people have never been discriminated in America. When have white people been discriminated in this nation? When? Tell me. I'll wait. From the immigrants who came over from other places to the native-born Europeans. Never. I grew up with discrimination. I grew up with Jim Crow, and those laws are still in effect in Philadelphia. I grew up with the race riots in the streets. I grew up when they had one of the most racist, bigoted police commissioners in the history of Philadelphia, Frank L. Risser. They called him the Cisco Kid when he was a beat cop, because he was a racist, an Italian racist. and they made him mayor for 2 terms. But see, what he didn't know is black folk have long memories and we don't forget. And then when he tried to shed his image and tried to rebrand himself and repackage himself as a moderate Democrat, he was so racist until when the CETA program that provided summer jobs for black people, he sent the money back to President Nixon and stopped the CETA program. So black youths could not have summer jobs. So when he tried to rebrand himself and repackage himself and started making the rounds on radio and television, black folks said, we will not let you become mayor again of this city. He ran against W. Wilson Goode as a Republican, and black folk made sure that he did not become the mayor. First, he ran in the Democratic primary. Then he ran as Republican. We don't forget, Philadelphia has a history of battling racism and bigotry. Philadelphia has a history, a documented history of the atrocities that happened during the civil rights movement against black people. Rizzo was so racist until he made the Black Panthers take off their clothes in the streets, and he held them up against the wall at gunpoint by his other racist cops. He had other blacks defend him, saying, well, Rizzo's not a racist. He's my friend. I said, shut the hell up. He was a racist, and he was a bigot. That's what he was. See, you all don't like to be called out on your racism and your bigotry when that's what you are. No matter how you try to phrase it, slice it, dice it, fry it, saute it, it's still old-fashioned racism. We know racism when we see it. So the ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit, which was unsealed Saturday, and the ruling made public on Saturday did not identify the names of the 5 defendants for whom the Justice Department is seeking a warrant arrest. But multiple sources confirmed to CBS that Lemon is one of them. A spokesperson for Lemon had no immediate comment on the ruling. CBS reported on Thursday that Magistrate Judge Doug Macko had refused to sign an arrest warrant for Lemon, who attended the protest at the church and interviewed the pastor. Lemon's attorney, Abby Lowell, said Thursday that the magistrate's actions confirm the nature of Don's First Amendment protected work this weekend in Minnesota as a reporter, and slammed the Justice Department for what he called a stunning and troubling effort to silence and punish a journalist for doing his job. You got something there. 3 people so far have been charged in connection with the protest on Sunday, while those people have now been released. When demonstrators entered St. Paul City's church after discovering that an immigration and customs enforcement official appeared to be one of the pastors at the church. So he's a man of God on Sunday, but he's out there terrorizing people all during the week and killing them. Just like the good racists and bigots down in the deep South who were terrorizing black people, bombing up their churches and everything. Good KKK members who wore the hoods. There were doctors, there were lawyers, there were judges, there were preachers, there were all that stuff. And try to justify white nationalism. White nationalism is nothing more than white supremacy, masquerading under the guise of democracy. Because if it's true democracy, it would be democracy for all and not for a select group of minute individuals. Miko also separately declined to approve some of the charges for the 3 defendants who were arrested, citing a lack of probable cause. In court filings to the 8th Circuit, Chief Judge Patrick Schultz for the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Minnesota said that Miko only found probable cause on 3 of the 8 arrest warrants presented to him by the department on January 20. When he declined to sign the other 5, Minnesota's U.S. Attorney Daniel Rosen personally called the court and demanded that his decision be reviewed by a district court judge. Ain't that nothing interfering with a judicial decision? I'm done, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to go over any more stories for today. I will say this. Exercise your constitutional right in the upcoming midterm elections. Make your voice heard. The best way, even with these people, is to vote the congressional candidates not to have power anymore. And to vote to give the majority of the votes to the Democratic Party so they can fight for what you need before it's too late. Because 3 more years of this, ladies and gentlemen, America survive. What do you think? Never surrender. Never quit.